I am very, very powerful. Oh my gosh.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yo, what's going on YouTube? Today we're going to be taking a look at Zhongli. I'll just mention this from the start since I see so many mixed opinions about him. I don't think he should be used as a DPS, but wait, don't leave! I'll back up my words with numbers, so don't worry. I believe his best use case is running a mix of geo damage on at least one piece as a main stat, and the rest mixed between energy recharge to abuse his short ultimate CD time and HP to abuse his shield for other DPS characters on your team. I'll talk about the HP scaling later, but I don't recommend putting too much into HP for now until he's buffed. So let's just get the numbers talk out of the way early on.
There were 3 carrots, and we divided those 3 carrots by...
Shut the fuck up, bitch.
I'll be comparing Zhongli to Xiangling as DPS just for the sake of accuracy when talking about multipliers since they both use polearms. Also keep in mind that Xiangling, whatever, is a 4-star and is much easier to obtain, and I think of her as an offensive support since she offers attack boost through her skills, but I'll save that talk for her own video later on since mine is C6. For DPS, I will be comparing their normal attack multipliers and base stats since I believe those two are the most important when it comes to any DPS's bread and butter. To introduce, I have to mention that Xiangling offers a flat 96 elemental mastery boost versus Zhongli's 28.8% geo damage boost as their bonus base stats. So keep that in mind as we continue. Xiangling has a base attack of 225 versus Zhongli at 251, but wait, Zhongli is a better DPS.
Shut the fuck up, no one cares. Know your fucking place, trash.
Now take a look at their multipliers at level 6. I decided to opt for level 6 since most people don't have the materials to push to max rank at this point, but keep in mind that the percentage gap widens by quite a bit by the time you get to level 15. Also a side note, I won't judge anybody for using Zhongli as a DPS because his normal attacks look damn nice. So if you take a look at their normal attack multipliers, I don't have to explain this, right? Xiangling has roughly 28% or so more damage on her multiplier by a hit, but let me just add them up to simplify things. So Xiangling's total comes out to 383% worth of damage in one normal attack cycle. Zhongli's comes out to 350%. But wait, Meester, Zhongli's base attack should make up the gap, right? But no, it's not, because I also went frame by frame to measure how long each normal attack cycle takes. And Xiangling is faster by roughly 16.6%. That means every 6 cycles, or 12ish seconds of sustained DPS, Xiangling will actually double the amount of damage Zhongli could do in that time frame at level 6 skills. And that gap will only keep widening as you level their talents. But I do understand that 12 seconds of sustained damage is harder than it sounds while dodging, whereas Zhongli can petrify and hold the enemy for a solid 3.6 seconds at level 6 ultimate and avoid flinch with the shield. But when playing co-op with a team with lockdown abilities like Venti or Water and Cryo Freeze Locks, it isn't too hard to hit consistently. Make of it what you will, I just don't think he's worth wasting the time grinding for pure attack gear since it also makes his ultimate quite a bit weaker. While we're on the subject of his ultimate, did you know that his multipliers for his ultimate go up to almost 1200% every 12 seconds at level 15 talent? I mean, that in itself should be enough to drive you to build him for elemental damage, recharge, and HP for the shield. I feel like I don't have to talk about the ultimate much since everybody is aware of how powerful it is.
Everybody knows that.
With the added utility of petrification. So onto the shield, it absorbs at level 6 17.92% of HP, roughly 2k flat damage defense, which also, it doesn't seem like much, right? But he also has one of the highest base HPs of all the characters, and on par with Jean at 14,695 health with a 12-second cooldown and 20-second duration for 100% uptime with a buffer also. Those numbers are okay for a shield, although the multipliers are a bit low, but I don't even think that's the most important part of his skill. The most important part to me is the fact that it stops your character from getting flinched.
So why didn't I flinch? Because the laws of science differ fundamentally from those of...
So it can overall increase your DPS if you say pop your shield and switch to a DPS like a Ching or Deluxe charge attack, since it won't get interrupted. Also in the gameplay you're watching, I'm running him on Primordial Jade with a Bolide set for attack damage ironically, but that's also why I decided he wasn't worth building into DPS, because I made the stupid sacrifices so you don't have to. I totally regret all these support pieces I foddered into DPS gear, to be honest, and this performance is pretty accurate to the average player. Since I'm not some Leviathan sized whale like Tenha with full C6 and max refinements, just primarily crit percentage and damage substats with attack main stats and one piece on geo damage to try and balance it out a bit. He's also on Bolide, so he gets an extra 40% damage buff when shielded, which clearly doesn't help much. So all in all, I think he's a fantastic support and elemental burst damage dealer with a bit of utility. I also think he's almost a necessity for making bosses easier, since he essentially gives you an extra life with the shield. Don't get me wrong with this review, I think he's a good support character, just think his balancing is quite a bit off at the moment. We need a multiplier buff for his shield, maybe even HP scaling on normal attacks so he won't be entirely useless for damage on an HP build. And also maybe remove the HP stat from his Lapidus, since at the moment it's essentially impossible to use against bosses. Also another quick tip, use his E-hold as a way to mine like Razor can if you didn't run him in the past for mining. Before we continue, I do want to mention that after writing this, MiHoYo essentially pooped on us as a community, saying that we're all building him wrong and he should be built for HP, but if you have Zhongli and tried HP builds, you'll know how weak his shield actually still is. As I've said before, his shield is essentially still used as flinch protection according to my friends with their Zhonglis around 40k HP. Now we're going to take a look at his options for artifacts. For artifacts, Zhongli is an odd one when it comes to building, which is why I think he's catching so much flack from the community, but these are subjective and what I would personally recommend to build for him. For the first set, I would actually recommend the most, just because, well, you'll see. So 2-piece Noblesse with a 2-piece Archaic Petra. This set is built to maximize ulti spam damage, obviously, and there honestly isn't much else to say about it. It's straightforward and should be geared towards energy recharge. This is probably my top pick by far. For the second set I'd recommend would be the 4-piece Archaic Petra for the 5-head players who aren't just watching Netflix on their second monitor while farming. The 2-piece geo damage bonus is welcome, but I find this set very viable for people who actually constantly swap characters like you're supposed to. I definitely don't do that. But the idea is that you would use your DPS to inflict an element to an enemy like Wet or Burn, then switch to Zhongli to crystallize, then swap back to your DPS to get that extra sweet 35% damage bonus. To get the full effects of the set, it requires a lot of timing. For the third set I'd recommend would be the 4-piece Bolide if you're a madman like me and want to build him as a brawler, or just full attack stats to use him earlier on as a DPS. Keep in mind the further you progress in the game, the more his lack of DPS begins to show. The reason why I chose this set is because I thought the damage boost and shield boost would be enough to still tank, but it's just not anywhere near enough defense when his HP is sitting around 18k like mine on full attack and crit substat rolls with attack main stats. It's quite clear when fighting the Frost Abyss mages to farm this set, and you will still get wrecked in just a few seconds of standing in the frost field. And now, onto the weapons. For the first place weapon, I just have to say Vortex Vanquisher, because it's essentially his exclusive weapon until we have another Geo Polearm user, which is probably going to be a long time. I think the strength of this polearm lies in its ability to cater to either a DPS or a support build, so I don't think it's ever a bad weapon for any build, unlike the Primordial Jade that I am using personally. I think it's especially strong when paired with Archaic Petra, but I'm not sure if the percentages would be additive. If somebody with the Vanquisher could clear that up in the comments, that would be awesome. In second place, I would have to say the Skyward Spine because of the energy recharge. If you've made it this far, I'm sure you can guess why. His ulti alone makes him a great character to have on any team, period. I'd say the third slot could be either for Crescent Pike or Prototype Grudge, but I'm more inclined to recommend the Grudge, to be honest. So to back up a bit, the Crescent Pike I see on most Zhonglis because many decided to build them for DPS, but hopefully this video helped sway what you thought was best for Zhongli. I mean, there isn't a wrong way to build any character, I just don't think it's ideal, but if you're early game, there's no harm in using him as your DPS with something like the Crescent Pike. I will say though that the Grudge should be what you're using for the long run. They are both great free to play weapons which you could easily max or find due to weekly bosses dropping the prototypes. And now onto the second half of the video where we are going to go through his talents and constellations one by one and maybe have a little discussion about them. Alright, this final part will be a little bit different from how I normally run them. We're going to pretty much start off with his details, just to show you if you are trying to build him for DPS. If you made it this far in the video, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be building him for DPS, but just in case you're curious, all of his main stats are attack percent except one which is on crit damage. They are all substatted around 16 to 25% attack percent except one which is on 18% energy recharge. I screwed up on that, but that's not enough of a difference because of how low his base stats are. And then we're going to jump straight into his talents because I don't want this video to be half an hour long. So first, his normal attack looks super cool. Charge attack looks super cool. Plunging attack looks super cool. Everything about Zhongli looks super cool. I'm sure you already know, you're familiar with all these. I don't have to explain that. His E ability, his bread and butter. I also should mention this early on that when you press his E button, the cooldown is actually about 3 seconds. So instead of just spamming your shield, I would recommend you like reposition your pillar if you don't have constellations before you use your shield. But anyway, let's just get into it. Every mountain, rock, and inch of land is filled with the power of Geo, but those who can wield such powers freely are few and far between. Wise words from Zhongli. When you press the pillar, or press your E button, it commands the omnipresent power of Earth to solidify into a stone stele, dealing AoE geo damage. Additionally, these stone stele will resonate with other geo constructs in the vicinity. If you've seen his trailer, and you should already know how well he works with Traveler and Ningguang, it deals geo damage to surrounding enemies and pulses. The stone stele is considered a geo construct and can both be climbed, which is actually really annoying, and used to block attacks, which is a lie. Only one may exist at any one time, that's another lie. With Constellation 1 you can put down 2. So I guess it blocks attacks. if you're up against archers and you're actually trying to like ENAS or something, I don't know. But my issue with the pillar and why I mentioned earlier about why I think it needs a buff to where it doesn't have HP is because against bosses, like you saw against the wolf, if you drop the E on a boss, like say the wolf, or hell, even some hilly trolls, I've noticed it happening. If you angle it at the wrong angle, or if you drop it within like their hitbox, it will literally break as soon as it drops, or they're gonna smack you through your pillar and then it'll break the pillar in one hit anyway, so it's kind of useless. So that's my biggest issue. You can't really use his E ability against bosses, which is endgame. But let's just keep going, and I'll come back to that on the constellations. When you hold, it causes nearby geo energy to explode, causing the following effects. Creates a shield of jade. The shield's damage absorption scales based on Zhongli's max HP, and absorbs geo damage 250% more effectively, hence why I recommend building him for HP. It causes geo damage. If there are any, okay, basically what all this is saying down here is if you're up against another geo enemy, you will regain or recharge your energy a lot faster for your ultimate. His ultimate is Planet Befall. He brings a falling meteor down to Earth, dealing massive geo damage to opponents caught in its AoE, and applying the petrification status to them. So, petrification at level 6, which most people have him at, I'm assuming, since that's the realistic goal. Level 15 is insane, and if you have anything above level 10, your RNG is out of this world and you should go buy a lottery ticket. Or I'm just very unlucky, I don't know. Am I the only one struggling with those world boss drops? Anyway. So, 3.6 seconds at level 6, 12-second cooldown. The duration is also extended with the constellation, we'll get to that earlier. This is pretty much what he's known for, I guess. The shield, I think, is his most useful part of his kit, but 1200% damage every 12 seconds fast energy recharge. That's kind of insane, and honestly, like, I don't want to be that guy, but everyone's asking for buffs and such, but I don't think that he really needs buffs that badly. If you do have like a main DPS and say you're running the average 3 other supports on your team, I think he definitely plays his part in defense. If you have his shield alongside with the healer, your DPS is basically never going to die unless, like I said earlier, you're just watching Netflix on the side like me. But I think he does his job well. I wouldn't complain if they buffed him. Definitely would complain if they nerfed, but I think he's in that weird, he's sitting on a fine line. Anyway, I don't want this video to be too long. So you already know about his ultimate. Petrification for about a third of the time of his cooldown. It recharges quick, does a lot of damage, huge AoE, which gets extended again in its constellation, but I don't think that's necessary. Also another reason, okay, we'll get to that when we get to that. His first passive is Resonant Waves. When the Jade Shield takes damage, it will fortify. Fortified characters have 5% increased shield strength, can stack up to 5% 5 times, and last until the Jade Shield disappears. So this is kind of a wasted passive, I think. 5% is so little that, like, what are you fighting that will only take about like 5 to 10% of your shield anyway? Like trash mobs? Like sure, whatever, but at endgame you're very rarely just fighting trash mobs to fight trash mobs unless you're grinding materials, which other players or other characters can also do very easily. So, and you won't need the defense against trash mobs. So against bosses and things, which is endgame, I think this is kind of a useless passive. If he gets a buff, I think this should be the first thing they look at, because I've actually never even noticed this. If you're up against, say, like Dvalin, like you saw in the gameplay, or Wolf or something, they're gonna break that shield within 1 or 2 hits, even at like 20k HP. So kind of useless. I don't know, maybe they'll address it, but I think people are complaining about the wrong things. This passive should be the biggest complaint so far, but let's keep going. His second passive is Dominance of Earth. Planet Befall deals additional damage equal to 33% of Zhongli's max HP. This is also another reason why you should be building for energy recharge, because you want to be dropping that every 12 seconds. That's a lot of damage that gets added up, and even his own kit works towards boosting his own damage in that department. So now onto his constellation. Constellation 1 increases the maximum number of stone stells, his E ability created by Dominus Lapidus, that may exist simultaneously to 2. If you really love Zhongli, I would recommend you just go C1. The rest of the constellations are good, but are they worth $4,000 to C6? I don't know, man. I wouldn't say so, but I don't know. I'm just a poor boy. Basically, this is self-explanatory. You know, you throw down 2 of his pillars, 3-second-ish cooldown each one. His second constellation is Stone, the Cradle of Jade. Planet Befall grants nearby characters on the field a Jade Shield when it descends. This is very good if, I guess, if you play co-op a lot, which I don't, because at endgame I don't think. Every time I play co-op, dude, I run into these, I go into like level 90 dungeons, right? And then there's always that one guy that goes in with like a level 50 Barbara or like a level 50 Amber. I'm like, dude, like you're trying to, like, it's actually faster to run solo, I find, than playing co-op most of the time. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, that's a complaint for another time. Jade, Shimmering Through Darkness, level 3 constellation. Every character has 2 of these. They just upgrade their skills. Like this one, upgrading Planet Befall by 3. This is actually kind of sick, and they're repainting my house. I'm sorry for the noise. Anyway, so Topaz, Unbreakable, and Fearless increases Planet Befall's AoE by 20%, which I don't think is worth going all the way to C4 for. Maybe this will C2, but eh. The duration of the petrification, though, gets extended by 2 seconds, which is good, but it essentially puts it to half of the cooldown duration. But generally, if you're fighting larger enemies like bosses and things, or even the large hilly trolls, those 2 seconds aren't that much, just because that's maybe 1 attack from them, which is easily dodged anyway. So it's up to you. I mean, if you're a rich boy, then go for it, but C4 for that, that's like minimum, like at least a few $100s if you're lucky. I don't know if that's worth it, especially with the Christmas units coming out. I don't know why I'm calling them Christmas units. I hope they're good, but they don't look that great. Anyway, so we already looked at C5. C6, is this worth $4,000? When the Jade Shield takes damage, 40% of that incoming damage is converted to HP for the current character. A single instance of regeneration cannot exceed 8% of that character's max HP. Everyone read this when his leaks were coming out and we're like, oh my god, he's gonna be so broken. Nope. So a skill like this is built for DPS builds, right? So, but also if you've made it this far, then you shouldn't be building him for DPS anyway, and you should understand that. So if you built him for HP and energy, oh my god, I'm so sorry, they are so loud. But anyway, so I can't even think straight. I'm sorry if this video is like 8 hours long. But basically, if you are building him for HP and energy recharge, as he should be as a support, even MiHoYo says he should be built for HP, this is a useless constellation, because you're pretty much always going to have your shield up, plus he's sitting at what, 40 to 50k HP? Like if you actually die through 50k HP and somehow your DPS characters like are actually still alive, then what are you doing? You're doing it wrong. But yeah, that'll pretty much wrap up this video. Let me know what you think about Zhongli. His kit is so awkward and I'm not sure what they were going for. It just kind of seems like they couldn't decide. Like maybe they were building him for DPS at first and then they were just like, oh no, actually let's just switch him to support. And they just like left a few things like the C6 here and just it doesn't really make any sense to me. But I don't know, let me know what you think. And that'll be pretty much it. I will say that during the New Year's I do want to, or not during, after the New Year's, I do want to get back into streaming, but the thing is, Genshin doesn't really have enough material to stream on? I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you actually watch Genshin streams? I did a lot when the game came out, but now I'm kind of like, whatever, just because I know everyone's just doing domains or running around gathering materials, and yeah, that's not that entertaining to me anyway. If you know me though, then you know that I built my original profile on Twitch off of games like Escape from Tarkov. I did play professionally in PUBG, and I've been playing shooters my whole life. So if you have any recommendations for shooters, there aren't very many of them. They are going insane outside my window. My house is probably about to fall down. If I die and I don't get this video out, I apologize, but basically, let me know what games you guys are interested in. I also play Epic 7. I'm always looking for new games to play. I'm not the type of person to just pick up one game and stick with it forever. I'm always down to try new things. Half my time is spent just browsing around on the Steam store, and holy hell, we're at 13 minutes for just this section, so we're gonna wrap this up. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment letting me know what kind of games you want to see, or if you're interested in watching, say, me streaming, let me know what kind of games. Did I already say that? I probably did. I'm losing my mind. This dude is scraping right next to my ear and I can't think straight. And I'll see you guys next time.